Hello, I'm Bill Monroe, and welcome to episode 69 of 2-Minute Talk Tips. This week's tip, or tips, comes from special guest Pradeepa Narayanaswamy.
Want one tip or three tips?
Let's go with three.
Okay,
I can always use more.
Awesome. Number one, wear something that you are comfortable with. And that is you. That's always number one. Number two, practice some powerful poses, body language poses. Check out Amy Cuddy. She has a lot of YouTube videos on some powerful poses. Practice that before you go on stage. And practice some voice, just like saying sounds like ah, ooh, ee, just so that you're opening up all the vocal cords. Practice that. I do this all the time. Just go to a restroom and practice that. That's okay. People hear you. That will really help you open up your vocal cord. Third tip, when somebody is asking you, like, are you nervous? Before you go on to a talk, especially if you're a first-time talker, tell them you are excited. Tell them excited. Both nervousness and excitement have similar feelings in your body. But when you use the word I am excited instead of I am nervous, the excitement will bring a very positive experience for you before you take on the stage. I am excited. Even practice telling that before you go on stage. I am very excited to be here. Even start your talk to be like that. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am super excited to be here. That way, you're wiring your brain to think that this is going to be an amazing, awesome experience. So those are my three tips.
That is awesome, because neurons that fire together, wire together. After the break, we'll talk more with Pradeepa about her lifelong journey as a speaker. Welcome back. Last week, I had the pleasure of talking with fertility coach Pradeepa Narayanaswamy about her journey. Pradeepa has been a speaker her entire life and did competitive speaking in school. She's worked as a corporate trainer and executive coach in the technology industry. Pradeepa's latest journey began with an opportunity to coach in a professional setting. She loved her role and enjoyed helping colleagues and providing the coaching support they needed for career and personal challenges. She fell in love with coaching. Then her biggest life challenge showed up: infertility. Her journey was long. 3 miscarriages, 3 failed intrauterine insemination treatments, 8 back-to-back in vitro fertilization treatments, and absolutely no answers to why. Unexplained infertility wasn't really an answer to anything. She shares this story in detail over at the Biz Babes with Soul podcast. You can find that link at 2minutetalktips.com/Pradeepa. Last August, she published an article on LinkedIn about shifting her focus from traditional life coaching to specifically fertility coaching. We talk about that decision and the process that led up to it in this episode, and you can also find a link to an article she posted on LinkedIn about that decision over at 2minutetalktips.com/Pradeepa. Her experience opened her eyes to the extreme need for support and service to this community of people that are experiencing infertility and going through this process. It's the process no one wants to talk about or even knows what to say. And when she realized this was how she could make her niche, it was like a lightning bolt. So let's go ahead and meet Pradeepa. So Pradeepa, thank you so much for joining me here on 2-Minute Talk Tips this week.
Thank you so much, Bill. I really appreciate the opportunity today.
We're going to talk about your most recent project and initiative in a moment, but even before you got into this last project and this most recent phase of your life, you had a career as a corporate trainer and speaker and did a lot of talking about technology. And those, of course, are fields that are very close to my heart.
Yeah.
So why did you choose that path? What was it about speaking that really spoke to you?
Yeah, really good question. Speaking and my direction towards going as a speaker came from my father, actually. So my father was a public speaker. He did a lot of presentations and things like that. And I have always observed him, and he was a big inspiration for me to getting into public speaking, to be honest. He doesn't go with a script. He tells stories. He makes his audience laugh. He tells stories about us, me and my brother as kids, and some of the quirkiness that happens in our family, in our lives. And people are able to relate to him when they were listening to him, and they laugh. They, a lot of people come to me and say like, hey, your father was awesome, right? I was somewhat little when I was hearing him speak, but that made me like, wow, like people like this. People like stories. I like stories. A lot of people like stories, and my father was a great storyteller, and he used the public setting, speaking opportunities to tell powerful stories that resonated with people. So that was my motivation, Bill.
Well, that is awesome. Storytelling is so important, and it's great that we're hearing a lot more people talk about the power of storytelling in making a point or in educating folks. And I think a lot of times most folks don't think about it, but storytelling is how our entire culture has come to be, from the development of religions to telling history and being able to incorporate that into things that we do today.
Right. So think about, go back to the caveman days, right? How did they communicate before they even had languages? They communicated via pictures. And pictures tell stories. And that's how they learned how to communicate before the language was developed and formed and gone to a mature state. So right from the beginning of humankind, we like stories. We love stories, and stories help us resonate with people. Stories help us visualize things. Story helps us see things from a different perspective, imagine things in our own perspective. So stories are very, very powerful.
So what is it you really like about standing up in front of a group of people and speaking with them and sharing the stories?
Yeah. To me, few things, right? One is inspirational, right? I really wanted my audience to get inspired by the story that I'm telling. Right? To be able to resonate with the story that I'm sharing, to be able to relate with the story that I'm telling, right? It doesn't have to be exactly, but they can go and think this has happened to me, or I know this has happened to somebody that I know, right? So there is that relation that's really, really happening. And a value, right? I always wanted to, there are different types of talks. So some of the talks that I give in more professional setting in technology conferences and things like that, it's the value. What are my audience learning from this talk, right? Learning from my talking there. What are the things that they are taking away from that? So that's also very, very important. I can just talk for an hour without people not learning anything, but when it comes to depending upon the type of the conference, I always associate some learning. Even ask questions like, what are you learning from this, right? What's your aha moment here? What are you going to take away from this, right? So even deliberately asking those questions will have them think what am I taking away from this? What am I learning from this, right? Even saying it out loud really helps them do that. So those are the two main areas. I want them to get inspired, them to be able to relate, but also get some value out of why they have to sit and listen to me for an hour and a half, whatever the time frame is.
That's awesome. And, that's a lot of the key, most important thing there is figuring out what is the goal you're trying to accomplish and then making sure everything supports that goal.
Yeah.
One of the things I notice in just listening to you is that you also do a really great job with repetition and parallel structure to land your phrases, where you start that same sentence with that same way. What are you? What are you? What are you? Or this power, this. Is that a technique you've had to consciously develop, or is that something you've just started doing as you progressed as a speaker?
I think I have consciously seen my dad do that. I have unconsciously seen my dad do that quite a bit, and I have developed as my own as well. I have developed it on my own as well. That's my style. So if my dad is no more with us, but if you see my style nowadays, my body posture, my hand talking, I'm a hand talker. The way that I use my hands, the way that I use my fingers, very much, resonates, very much comes from my father. So a lot of things I have really observed him talk. He used to coach me. Like I started speaking right when I was really, really young. I used to go for speech competitions and things like that. So my father helped write, and I have to deliver it every morning to him. While he was eating his breakfast, he teaches me on like how to stand, how should my shoulders be, right? Where should my arms be? Like how do I have to, how do I have to see people in front of me, right? Everything, not only just the words that come out of my mouth, enunciations and pronunciations, but also my whole body structure, like power pose, like how do I stand? How should my shoulders be, right? He even gives me voice practices too before I go on the stage, I used to gargle, put some water on my mouth and like gargle, like that, so that my voice gets even more louder, and it will be helping to project. It will help me to project even more better.
Right. Also gives you something to do, and that's great for especially less comfortable speakers, because once you give yourself something to do, a task, it helps take your mind off of any anxiety that you might be dealing with as well. Speech and debate in school, it can be some absolutely fantastic training. I know I did that through high school and college and all sorts of things, and it's a great way to get started on this path. And I always tell folks with kids, if they have the slightest interest in going into forensics in school, absolutely encourage that.
Yeah. I'm very grateful for my dad and my early time in my school going after and speaking, because that really helps me these days with no stage fear, absolutely no stage fear. And I can appear in front of people and I can share my story and inspire.
So from that background in training and that background of building up these skills, you've made a transition from focusing primarily on technology to your new mission in fertility coaching. So how do you describe your mission, and how did you make that shift?
So my mission is very, very simple and straightforward. So Bill, my mission is to help men, women, and couples infertility journey suck less.
That's a great way of putting it.
It's a sucky journey for all it matters. And I have personally experienced it. So I know how sucky it can be. And with all the people that I'm working with, all my clients that I'm working with, everybody has their own sucky story of their own. So I know it's a really sucky journey. So that's why my mission is to really help that journey suck less. It's going to suck no matter what, but my goal is can I reduce that suckiness? And that's where I come in as a coach.
So how did you make that shift into that coaching role?
Shift into that coaching role. So I am an organizational leadership coach. I've been a professional coach for 8+ years now, but mostly working inside organizational settings. And I nowadays work a lot more with leadership these days. But I have my own coaching business for about 3.5 years or so, my own life coaching business. But fertility coaching is still somewhat new for me, less than a year old as of August of last year. Actually, one of my, I was speaking at a very big conference last year, and one of my friend, who was also an attendee, he asked me about Pradeepa, he knows about my life coaching business. So he asked me Pradeepa, I know you're a life coach and all, what's your thing? So he was asking for my specialty, what's my niche with regards to coaching? I really didn't have an good answer for him. the things that came out of my mouth, which really came from my brain, are like, I wanted to be a women's empowerment coach, especially for minority women. I wanted to really help people going through adoption process or have adopted a child, because we have adopted our son as well. And I also wanted to help people going through fertility challenges. That kind of came out of nowhere. But those were all like just the answers from my brain, not from my heart. But that was a very powerful question. I really wanted to explore that even further. Like, what is my thing? So I did an experiment at the conference last year. Conference had about like 2,500 attendees. So it's a big conference. So I had plenty of opportunities to meet and introduce myself to new people. So whenever I introduce myself to a new person, I introduce myself as these 3 different personas: minority women empowerment coach, adoption coach, and fertility coach. And only when I talk about me as a fertility coach, every time, I was feeling a tingling sensation in my body. My heart was beating faster, and there was butterfly in my stomach. And every time I felt goosebumps on my hands. So then and there, I knew it. That's my thing. Because I had this long journey. I didn't suddenly become an infertility coach. I had struggles with infertility. My life, 8+ years of struggles. And it took 3 years for me to really get over that fact, with so many failures. So there was always a part in me that's always, there was a hidden part in me. There's always about that infertility aspect, and that'll never go away until I die. So every time when I did that, like, I felt this body and my heart was beating really faster. So I had to listen to my body. Oh my God, the universe is telling me something. This is my thing. This is my purpose. I had a really sucky journey, like I mentioned to you. I wish I had a coach working with me back then, but I'm grateful I did not, because I can be the person for other people who are going through the similar challenges and struggles. And that's my purpose.
It's funny how once we start getting more specific about what we want to do and how we want to help, that's really when that fire can light up within us and can really sort of light the direction that we want to go forward and how we can help make this world a little bit better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To me, right now, I am very grateful for my fertility struggles, because that led me to my purpose in life. And I can honestly say that's why I'm born. I used to sit and cry, like, why me? Out of all the people, why did you choose me to be this way? Like, originally from India, out of all the great things India is known for, India is also known for its population. Why me? Like, nobody in my family has this kind of challenges as far as I knew. So I was totally surprised and taken back, like, when it hit on me and when it came to me, like when there was a spotlight on me, like, yep, you have fertility challenges here. That was totally unexpected, but I'm really grateful for that experience that life gave me, because that led me to the path where I am today and where I'm going forward, Bill.
You mentioned a key phrase in there that I think is really important, and that's where you said, as far as you know, these are not other challenges that have been in your family. When we talk about fertility, and you're being fantastically candid about this in your experience, and I've heard the details you've shared in other podcasts, and that is so important to help deal with, just some of the stigma that's around it. I imagine a lot of the stress and the challenges don't come from just the infertility itself or fertility challenges themselves, but from how do you talk to friends and family. And here you've gone ahead and taken what is a very sensitive subject for many folks, and you're talking about it, on podcasts and in front of crowds and audiences. And how did you become comfortable talking so publicly about something so important that so many people are afraid to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I actually talked about my fertility journey and my fertility struggles, to be specific, at a room full of about 120 to 150 people, again, 2 years back in Atlanta at a conference. And my topic that I was presenting on listening skills, passionate listening, a powerful connection with passionate listening. That was my topic. But I wanted, until like going onto the stage, my talk was around like 2:00 or something Eastern time. Until 1:59, should I tell my story as a backstory? Because that's the true story. Why I became really good at listening, why I became much, much better at listening is because of my fertility struggles. And that's the story that I wanted to tell the audience, but I have never, ever exposed that side of me, that personal side of me, to anybody in my professional setting. And these are all the people like who know me so professionally for a really long time. So that was like I was like very nervous. I was very nervous about it, to be honest with you. I was like, should I tell this? It was me, right? Nobody knew that what I wanted to share. So it was in my head, like, should I share? Should I not? Should I share? Should I not? But I decided to share. That was the first time that I shared my story. Just give a small snippet of why I became a passionate listener, but I tied back to my fertility struggles. You know, when I was going through this, I was having challenges, like there was nobody there to listen to me at the level that I wanted to be listened to, right? And I used to think about that way. But on a very different conference, I was listening to a speaker talking about this concept called passionate listening, where, you know, you're listening to somebody at that level where you're not formulating a response, you're clearing your head, you're just listening so that they are understood. You know, you're not only understanding the words that are coming out from their mouth, but their whole body, their whole intuition, their energy, everything. That somehow really resonated with me. I don't know why. That triggered a lot of emotion with me personally, because it triggered about my fertility struggles. Like I am now like complaining about, like, nobody is there to listen to me. Why can't I turn that around and let me start being a better listener for other people? So right then and there, this was a different conference in Chicago. So right then and there, I wanted to practice passionate listening. And I started listening, paying attention to other people much better than I was ever before. It was a really long journey for me. But now, Bill, I can so guarantee it, I'm a really good listener. And a lot of people have told me about that and complimented me about that. So I have really worked on that skill. So that's the story that I shared. But the backstory was my fertility challenges. So first time with 150 people. That was nervous. But that was a conference said and done. Nobody left the room. I just hooked up people on my story. I saw some people were even tearing up in my audience, right? So I know of the power of that story that I was sharing with them, the vulnerability the way that the power of my vulnerability showed up through me in that room, how courageously I showed up. A lot of people gave me kudos, and I was the best rated speaker that year, to be honest. So yeah, that was the real me. That was my real story. First time there. And after that, again, like the conference that I mentioned last year with 2,500 people, after I realized this is what I wanted to do, I wanted to be a fertility coach, I came back. This was August. I came back, and the next week, I wrote a LinkedIn article. You can still find it in my LinkedIn, claiming my niche as an infertility coach. And first time ever, I blasted my infertility journey and my struggles and why I am claiming my niche as a fertility coach to about 3,500 people. And again, it's not 150 people, it's 3,500 people. It's much broader, a lot more people in my professional settings who don't know about any of this. And again, I really didn't know what to expect out of this. There was so many overwhelming response from the people. Like people started sending me personal messages, Pradeepa, thank you so much for doing this. Wish I knew you 9 years ago when I was going through this struggle. Pradeepa, thank you so much for doing this. I'm seeing my sister struggling every day with fertility challenges. So thank you and kudos to you for doing something like this. This means a lot to me. Like that, so many personal messages coming into my inbox and overwhelming support for what I'm trying to do. Then and there, I knew it, Bill. It's not about me anymore. It's not about my journey anymore. It's about the people that I'm set to serve in this world. That's my purpose. And it became more clear for me then and there.
When you talk about becoming more comfortable in doing that, that kind of feedback just really reinforces that it's not just that people think it's okay, but that it's important.
And that's why I started appearing in a lot of podcasts, in different podcasts, sharing about different aspects of my journey through different lenses, because I want people to hear that it's okay to talk. It's not a taboo subject. It's not a cliched subject. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to feel ashamed to talk about this, right? There is support. And I'm doing this. I'm creating awareness for people. Fertility coaching is such a new niche. People don't know about this. People know about career coaching. People know about business coaching. People know about executive coaching. Fertility coaching, like, what is that? A lot of people ask that. That's why my mission is very simple. I help men's, women's, and couples fertility journey suck less. That's what I help with the emotional aspect of it.
And being that that extra resource as well outside of the direct medical community,
Right.
In terms of, because what a doctor says is going to have its specific focus. What a nurse says will have that specific focus. What a coach says who can actually provide the overall support and help people sort through all of this stuff is a really powerful role.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the total support. Like, you captured it beautifully. Doctors are not able to provide a lot of emotional care and support for their patients. They are not trained for that. That's where I come in. That's where the partnership between, I partner with a lot of fertility clinics. So that's where they really utilize my expertise to provide the total support and care for their patients. Doctors and nurses in the clinics care about their patients, right? So this is just a different way to add on to their services.
Exactly. And that's sort of been my experience in dealing with stroke recovery and things like that, is that the medical professionals I deal with are all very good at what they do, but it's getting beyond that narrow scope where they just don't have the expertise and they're not trained for it. And, it's not their job, but having that extra resource is fantastic. What I also really like about what you talked about there is that it really ties into what we were saying earlier when we talk about the power of storytelling. I mean, you were at that conference to talk about being a passionate listener. But what really helped that message about passionate listening and probably those skills you taught in there to land was that connection back to that deeply personal and emotional story, because that is going to make any technique, any information sharing, anything you're trying to land through a presentation, those stories, those connections are what people will remember and how they will learn the lesson of your message.
Yeah. You're completely right. You're completely right. Because even after 2 years, this is a conference that happens annually, and I go there every year to speak, or sometimes, nowadays, I'm sharing tracks and things like that. Like last year, when I was in a lunch line, somebody came to me, I tapped my shoulders, Pradeepa, I don't think you will remember me, but I was at your passionate listening talk, and the story you shared, that was very profound. I still use all the techniques that you taught us that day. This was somebody in my audience 2 years later coming and sharing that he is using those techniques because of the story.
That's how you make your conference presentations more effective.
Right.
So it seems like, conferences certainly seem to have played a large role in what you're doing, defining your mission here a year ago, 2 years ago, telling your story 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, first encountering the passionate listening, and you're still doing a lot of the conferences and now running the tracks. And so what is it that makes a good or valuable conference that can really, change people's lives for the long term?
Like, always consider, put your audience first, right? Who are your attendees first? What's in it for them? why they should come and listen to you, because some of these massive conferences, they have parallel tracks running all the time. So it's not only your story, it's not only the way that you speak, it's not only your personality and the topic, but like what's the value that they are going to get by attending your session over other people. So I always think from like, if I go to somebody's session, what would I value from? And that's the way that I think about. So yeah, think about your attendees first. You're serving them.
Awesome. So if you're a prospective attendee and you're looking at all these different conferences, is there anything that you particularly look for in deciding which ones to go to? How do I spot what I think is going to be a good conference for me to attend?
Yeah. Some of the things, it depends upon what my need is as an attendee at that time, right? My need decides what sessions that I wanted to go to or what sessions I would be interested in and what value I want to get out of that conference. So if you are an attendee in a conference, before going to a conference, have a list, like just a bullet list of things that you really wanted to learn for yourself before looking into the conference program, right? What do you want to learn? List them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And based on your learnings, whatever you want to take away, then go and look into the program and see which of the sessions match that list, or at least provide some value to the list that you have on hand. Otherwise, this is, otherwise sometimes for bigger conferences, it can get really overwhelming. And also keep an open mind, right? When you go to a session, keep an open mind. It may be a new speaker. You may not have heard his or her name before. Keep an open mind and see whether you are hearing anything that you want to hear and the value that you are getting. And this is another tip that I always give my session attendees, as well as, people in general going to conferences. Use law of 2 feet. If you are not seeing value in a presentation or in the speaker that you are sitting in, get up and leave and go to a next session. Because some people feel like once they sit on a chair in a room, they feel they're obligated to sit throughout. You're paying a lot of money to attend some of these conferences. So if you are not finding value, law of 2 feet, get up on your feet, go to a next session or do whatever makes sense for you. Those are my few tips.
Fantastic. And, what's interesting there is that the overriding tips for when you are building a conference, speaking at a conference, or attending a conference, it's all the same thing. It's figure out your goal, what you want to accomplish, figure out how to get that, and make sure that that's where you build it towards.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
For folks who have friends or family who are struggling with fertility, what is the best thing that, friends or family, they want to be supportive, but they don't know how and they don't know what to say or what to do. So sometimes they just end up avoiding folks and that's not good for anybody. So how can friends and family best support a loved one who's dealing with these challenges?
Yeah, really awesome question, because we oftentimes don't consider that aspect, like how are the people surrounding us can support people who are actively going through that. That's a great question. So, I've offered like phone conversations with different people that I'm interacting with or my friends, like, hey, tell me, I have 5 children. My sister is going through infertility challenges. What should I tell her, right? So few tips that I would offer, like one is don't be sympathetic, right? Sympathy is the last thing people need, especially when they're going through fertility challenges. Don't be sympathetic, because we are already feeling sorry for ourselves in a lot of ways. So just don't add to that, right? You don't sometimes have to have the right words to say. Just say, hey, I may not be truthful to yourself, right? If you are not going through fertility challenges, you will not understand what it is like. So honor that, acknowledge that, and let your friend or a family member know, hey, I have no idea what you are going through, but I understand this is very challenging for you. I'm here for you for whatever you need. That's it. That's all you have to say sometimes. I'm here for even just sitting with you, even just holding hands. Even let me know if you want me to give a big hug, and I'm here for you to give hugs and be there for you. And that's all sometimes people need. So don't pretend or don't give advices. Do this. Have you tried this pill? Have you checked with this doctor? Have you done this rituals? Right? Have you tried this medication? Have you tried this herb? Please don't do that. Please don't do that. You may have the right heart to say that. You wanted to just help them, but you're not the doctor unless you're a doctor. You're not the doctor. You don't know what's going on with them, right? So please never, ever, ever prescribe anything. Those are my 3 tips to families and friends.
It's so simple to hear and yet so powerful. And a lot of times that's where a lot of this stuff in supporting folks is. It's the simple stuff. It doesn't have to be huge and complex. Just being there and acknowledging the person and what they're going through and listening, because, we all want to be heard.
Yeah. I felt that. That's why powerful listening it so affected me when I heard that.
This has been great. If folks want to work with you or learn more about you or what you're up to, where should they go?
My website, Bill, it's www.lives, transformed, transformed.com. It's lives-transformed.com. All my information, all the things that I offer, how I'm supporting men, women, and couples, everything is available in my website. Reach out to me. Don't struggle in silence.
Fantastic. And we'll actually also have all those links over at 2minutetalktips.com/Pradeepa. Thank you very much. This has been great.
Thank you so much, Bill.
That's it for this week. What are your thoughts on Pradeepa's journey? Have you found yourself speaking about taboo subjects from the stage? How did it make you feel? Let us know in the comments over at 2minutetalktips.com/Pradeepa. Visit lives-transformed.com to learn more about Pradeepa or to work with her. Or just visit 2minutetalktips.com/Pradeepa for all the links we talked about today. Do you listen to 2-Minute Talk Tips through an Apple device? Head on over to the Apple Podcast Store and leave us a rating or a review to help even more folks find this show. And of course, as always, don't get best, get better. Thanks a lot. I'm Bill Monroe, and I'll talk to you next week.
Two-Minute Talk Tips is a proud production of the Currently Speaking Podcast Network.